I'd like to suggest that everything that happens in Eyes Wide Shut, directed by Stanley Kubrick and starring Tom Cruise and Nicole Kidman, everything that we see, hear, and experience from the first to the final scene is all one elaborate initiation ritual to entice, seduce, and indoctrinate, and ultimately force Dr. William Hartford, his wife Alice, and their 7-year-old daughter Helena into joining the film's secret society. It's important to note that it's my opinion that Stanley Kubrick does nothing by accident. However, this film, of course, will always have an asterisk next to it, as the film released after his death. While this isn't a video about his death, it's impossible to talk about Eyes Wide Shut without mentioning it. Kubrick famously cut 19 minutes of 2001: A Space Odyssey after its first screening in New York City back in 1968. Who knows what final tweaks he may have made to Eyes Wide Shut had he stayed alive even a few more days. But that's a video for another day. For more on 2001: A Space Odyssey, I have a video I'll link in the description below. I'm obsessed with film auteurs like Stanley Kubrick and Christopher Nolan. If you are too, think about subscribing and hit the like button if for no other reason than it's incredibly helpful to the discovery of my small channel, and I'd appreciate it more than you could know. Back to Eyes Wide Shut. In this video, I'm going to break down my theory that the entire film is one initiation ritual to bring Tom Cruise and his family into the cult. Even before the first scene in which Dr. Hartford and his wife make themselves beautiful for a group of strangers, the first shot of the film shows Nicole Kidman taking off her clothes. Later in the film, we see a group of women standing in a circle at the masked ball, all take off their dresses in the exact same way. Why start with this exact image? Is Kubrick preparing us for the same type of ritual? I believe so. After the doctor and his wife leave their daughter alone with a babysitter, in the very first scene, they arrive at the party hosted by a prominent patient of Dr. Hartford's known as Victor Ziegler, played by Pollack. While dancing, Alice, played by Nicole Kidman, asks her husband Dr. Bill Hartford if he knows anyone here, to which Tom Cruise responds, "Not a soul." She asks him why Ziegler invites them every year, and his answer, in my opinion, has a double meaning, and will propel Cruise's Dr. Hartford on the rest of his misadventures. Cruise responds, quote, "This is what you get for making house calls." End quote. And it was on my most recent rewatch of the film in which this line really stood out to me. I must have heard it 10 times before, but it was on this viewing where it dawned on me. Dr. Bill, as Cruise would refer to himself from time to time depending on the character he was speaking to, Dr. Bill and his wife and their child were all being initiated into the secret society that Victor Ziegler was a part of. I think the rest of the Christmas party scene, and everything that happens in it, is basically a series of tests. They're sizing up Bill and Alice, secretly seeing how easily they can be seduced, how intrigued they'd get by the idea of dishonesty and polyamory, and exactly how far each of them would go before getting invited into the real secret society. There are 3 very important happenings or tests in this party, and we're going to discuss them all briefly before continuing on to the rest of the initiation ritual, which is not just the secret mansion scene or the masked ball, which is so famously misunderstood. 1. The first and most obvious thing, so let's get it out of the way, is Ziegler's request that Bill assist him with an overdosing prostitute named Mandy. I believe this is a test to see just how trustworthy and committed to Ziegler Bill is. Cruise's Bill passes this test with flying colors, as he is calm, cool, and collected, having no issue assisting Ziegler with a possibly dying prostitute in his bathroom during the Christmas party, and might I add, he was just speaking to Ziegler's wife a moment ago. When all is said and done, Ziegler asks that Cruise keep this between them, and Cruise agrees without flinching. Test number 1 passed. The second test is for Nicole Kidman's Alice Hartford. While her and her husband are split up for the moment, a tall, handsome Hungarian attempts to seduce Alice right there at the party. He has not a care in the world that she is married and continually attempts to get her to make love to him upstairs right now. Having seen this before, I had always just assumed that because the film was about sex, lust, and desire, that this scene was placed here to show us the temptations of the world, and in that test, Alice had always passed. because she continues, albeit while flirting, to deny the man his advances. However, in the context of the secret society testing Alice, she fails this test. In fact, it's my opinion that this Hungarian is the man later referred to as Red Cloak. And just as it is their desire to get Dr. Bill Hartford to join their society, it's the secret society's desire to get Alice to join as well, and they want to see just how willing she is to deceive her husband and sleep with another man. In fact, something I'll get to later, but I do believe that Alice has been to one of the cult's parties in the past, possibly having blacked it all out. She mentions in a later scene that she had a dream in which she was at a similar party to the one Cruz sneaks into, and that she was making love to hundreds of men. Did this actually occur, or was this just an interesting coincidence? And one final note about Alice at the party. When she and Dr. Bill first enter and are greeted by Ziegler and his wife, Sidney Pollack's Ziegler can't keep his eyes off of her. In fact, he barely looks at his friend, played by Cruz, and doesn't stop staring at Kidman until he tells her, quote, "Alice, look at you. God, you're absolutely stunning." And I don't say that to all the women, end quote. Mrs. Ziegler notes that, yes, he does. We soon learn that Ziegler does most probably say that to all the women. Does Ziegler and the secret society want Bill and Alice to join their group for Bill's medical knowledge? Is it that they want to bring a new doctor into the fold? Or is it because Alice is so stunning? Maybe both. There's a lot to unpack. 3. Nick Nightingale. Test 3. I'll first posit a question and then give you my thoughts. Does Nick accidentally tell his old friend and medical school buddy Dr. Bill about the secret party he's playing at by accident? Or on purpose? Is Nick part of the initiation ritual to get Cruz and Kidman to join the secret society? And why is it that Nick Nightingale is the piano player at Ziegler's Christmas party this year? Alice asks Bill while dancing why they are invited to these parties every year. However, it's only this year where Bill notices his old friend Nick Nightingale playing the keys. So, is this the year Ziegler has decided to bring Dr. Hartford into the fold? Just as soon as Nick and Bill get acquainted, Mr. Ziegler's right-hand man swoops in and pulls Nick away. Had he served his initial purpose? To intrigue Bill, to prepare him for seeing him again, so that he would be ready for Fidelio, the password. The full test Nick Nightingale presents isn't completed until Bill runs into him again at the nightclub, in which Nick takes a call in front of Bill knowingly writing down the password instead of just remembering it, which I'm sure he could have, and then tells Cruz all the details about the party. A party he says he shouldn't tell him about, and he obviously knows he shouldn't allow him to attend, even if Bill shows up alone. To me, this is an obvious setup, a test. Test 3, to see if the good Dr. William Hartford is corruptible. William passes this test and attends the party, not as a secret spectator, but it's my opinion that he attends the party as the main attraction. So what happens right after the party? After Bill spends most of the night flirting with 2 models and assisting Ziegler with his overdosing prostitute, and Alice spends the night drinking and flirting with an older man, the 2 go home and sleep with each other. This scene is short and famously takes place in a mirror, as seen on most of the cover art and posters. Cruz and Kidman are nude and kissing in that mirror, with Kidman mostly staring at herself, while Chris Isaak's "Baby Did a Bad Bad Thing" plays on the soundtrack. I think it's telling that Kubrick doesn't show the 2 actually make love, but instead focuses on their lust, post-solo, however faithful, sexual encounters that night. In this we learn 2 things. 1, that the secret society failed at their first attempts to lure the couple, and 2, that while faithful, both Bill and Alice were turned on by the night's misadventures. This tells us a lot. After a quick montage of Cruz's Dr. Bill going to work at his practice, while Kidman gets dressed and takes care of their daughter, Helena, we soon come back to home base. Their daughter's in bed, and Kidman asks if Bill wants to wrap some Christmas presents. Now, we all know that when a question like that is asked, well, I guess if you're married, we all know that if a question like that is asked, the answer is let's not do it right now. And Bill says, let's do it tomorrow. This leads us into a famous scene in which Cruise and Kidman smoke a joint and get into something of an argument about the differences between men, women, fantasy, love, and lust. Now, while I don't think Nicole Kidman's character is in on the plan to get them to join the cult, I do think it's interesting that she is the one who initiates the conversation. There's a shot of her in the bathroom right before the conversation where she's looking at herself in the mirror while she takes out a bag of pot and she just lingers just a moment as if she knows she needs to do something. Now, I guess there's a way to look at this where she's initiating the conversation on purpose, but I don't think that that's the case. And so what I'll just say is I think that this conversation is necessary in order to get Cruise on the path of questioning his own sexual power, right? That's the thing that really leads him down this path, where he's looking for a way to regain his power. As this scene ends, he gets a phone call from one of his patient's daughters who lets him know that his patient has died and that he needs to come to the house right now. I think this is strange because this isn't something that a doctor would normally do. Go to someone's house after someone died. He's not there to confirm the death. He's there to console them. And this brings me back to the whole, this is what you get for making house calls comment. The home of his patient that he goes to is another immaculate apartment mansion in New York City. Not as nice as Ziegler's, but it is a step above his own apartment in the city. This leads me to believe that many of his patients, while not people at Ziegler's party, because he notes that he doesn't know a soul there other than Ziegler and his wife, many of his patients must be rich and wealthy socialites in New York City. I don't think that that's a stretch. And so it makes me wonder if one of the reasons why they want Dr. Hartford to join their society is because he's already a part of their lives. I find it incredibly interesting that the daughter of his patient tells Dr. Hartford that she loves him. She kisses him and she tells him that she wants to run away with him. She doesn't want to leave with her husband. She wants to stay with him. This confuses Dr. Hartford, but upon rewatch, I wonder if she's one of the women in the secret society as well. Because while her father just died, she's ready to have an affair with her doctor. Why was he called in the middle of the night? Obviously, the apartment is between his home and the corner where Domino picks him up and lures him into her apartment. Is this a coincidence? It might be, but I don't think so. If my theory is correct, then all Domino needed to do was get Bill to sleep with her. This seems easy enough. He appeared to be very interested in sleeping with the two young models at Ziegler's party. His wife just got him high, told him a story about how she wanted to sleep with another man and that she would have left everything behind just to be with this one Navy officer. So Cruise's character is already feeling desperate to get his power back. And now here he is, alone on a street corner with a beautiful young prostitute who invites him into her home. This seems like a no-brainer, and I think the society feels if they could just get some dirt on him and see what he's willing to do, they can bring him in. But before anything can happen, Kidman's Alice calls him on the phone. Bill gets cold feet and leaves. It makes me wonder if Domino and Bill were to have slept together, would she have invited him to the masked ball? Now, he doesn't sleep with her, he leaves, but luckily for the society, according to my theory, his friend Nightingale is playing at a local jazz bar on the way home within walking distance. So, let's think about this. Bill is drugged, sent out of the house, he experiences grief, jealousy, lust, and now finally is presented with intrigue as Nick spills the beans about the masked ball. Shortly after they meet, he takes a call. He answers this with no secrecy, writing down the password Fidelio on a napkin. Something I said before, I really believe he easily could have remembered that. He did not need to write Fidelio down for Cruise's Dr. Bill to see. This must be part of a plan. And finally, the plan works. Cruise's Dr. Bill is so dead set on sleeping with someone tonight that he does everything in his power to get to that party. Now, it's obvious to me that people at the party always would have known he was an outsider. One, he shows up in a taxi, which Ziegler calls him out on near the end of the movie. But two, He doesn't belong. He's obviously an outsider, and while he walks through the halls of the party, he merely observes. So while Cruise's character, Dr. Bill, feels he needs to prove himself in some way, seemingly he is not a man of action. I'm of the belief that the secret society would have enjoyed had he dived in head first and joined the party. Quote unquote, joined the party. But he doesn't, and so they put on a little show for him. And Ziegler tells him as much, again, later in the movie during the pool table scene. Ziegler says the whole thing was a charade. And I think he's mostly telling the truth. I think the girl, Mandy, who later ends up dead, is telling him he needs to leave, to scare him, to see what he'll do. And when he doesn't, the society finally takes advantage. If we can't get him in by intrigue and desire, we will get Dr. Hartford to join via fear. And fear is one hell of an entry fee. It tends to work, and as we'll see in the rest of the film, fear gets him in to the cult. How interesting is it that Bill knows exactly where to get a costume in the middle of the night? He says he's Peter Grenning's doctor, owner of Rainbow Fashions. This is a small detail, but again, I find it interesting that he seemingly knows all the right people who would be involved in this secret cult. Grenning, who the new owner states has been dead a year, owns the shop in which one can buy a, quote, tux, a cloak with a hood, and a mask. The new shop owner immediately seems to know just what Dr. Hartford is interested in. Now, one of the stranger things that occurs in Eyes Wide Shut is when Mr. Milich, the new owner of Rainbow Fashions, finds his underage daughter in her underwear hiding in a back room with two middle-aged men wearing costume wigs. Mr. Milich freaks out, understandably, as this is disturbing. He locks the men inside the room while yelling at his daughter and continues to sell the costume to Cruz. His daughter whispers something to Cruz, which we will never know, but what I find more interesting is how surprised the two men are at Mr. Millich's anger over the situation. To the viewer, and to Cruz, this makes sense. But I'm of the mind that this too was staged for Cruz's Dr. Hartford to witness, as the next morning, while returning the costume to Rainbow Fashions, the two men, now in suits, exit a back room with Mr. Millich's daughter again, but this time, Milich has no issue, letting the good doctor know they worked something out and informs Cruz he can always come back for anything he might need, alluding that his daughter was available to him as well for the right price. What else could this possibly mean other than another test/invitation into this depraved cult? And speaking of the cult, let's dive into the previous night's masked ball. Near the end of the film, Ziegler tells Dr. Bill that he knows what happened last night, and admits to having seen everything, as he too was at the party at the mansion. Cruz and the viewer assume Ziegler means that he saw everything once the good doctor was unmasked at the party, being forced to reveal himself after not having the correct response for the second password. Fidelio being the password for the house, but now being questioned about the password for the door. Cruz rightfully assumes Ziegler witnessed this humiliation by Red Cloak and simultaneous rescue by Mandy, the unknown at the time masked woman. But Cruz would be wrong. Now, we never see Ziegler's face at the party, as we don't see anyone other than Dr. Bill's, but while some may theorize that Ziegler is actually the mysterious ringleader referred to on message boards and other breakdown theory videos as Red Cloak, it's my suggestion that Ziegler is the masked man who first appears on the balcony, famously turning his head, looking directly at the masked doctor, and nodding to him. This occurs not during the unmasking, but moments after the doctor enters the secret party for the first time and enters the great hall where Red Cloak is banging his staff to a disturbing hymn as a circle of robed women undress, similarly to how we are first introduced to Nicole Kidman and the film as a whole, as I mentioned in the beginning of this video. This harkens back to the opening shot of the film, and now it's my assumption that Ziegler is that masked man who already knows his plan has worked, and the doctor finally took the bait and is at the party. His party. This same masked man, who has a similar build, I might add, to Sidney Pollack's broad-chested Ziegler, follows Dr. Hartford around the mansion, and at one point whispers something to a thin masked woman who walks directly up to Cruz and asks him if he'd like to go somewhere more private. This is a huge tell, and Dr. Bill seems not to understand the implication. Why go somewhere private while everyone else is doing their dirty work right out in the open? Cruz truly is lamb for the slaughter. Now, he's quickly rescued by Mandy, again telling him he needs to flee. Interestingly, just as she leaves him, another masked man tells Cruz to come with him. This leads us into the main initiation ritual. I believe that because Cruz's Dr. Bill has been too faithful and or too timid to actually join in on the fun, he technically could have just had his masked way with anyone at any time. But instead of taking the plunge and joining the group, he now will be manipulated to join via fear. And he will be frightened. The next few moments include being called out as an outsider, being unmasked, and then asked to strip down completely. At this point, Mandy again comes to the doctor's rescue, this time dramatically public, stating in front of the entire masked crowd that she is, quote, ready to redeem him. She is taken away, and the doctor is asked to leave. So, what is the point of this charade, if that's what this is? Well, Cruz is learning the rules and regulations of the secret society and learning that there are dire consequences for any unkept promises within this group. It appears he's being scared away, but I believe he's being scared to join. In fact, we can just look at Dr. Bill's reaction, because Cruz accepts Mandy's trade, which appears to be her life for his. He doesn't stand up for her the way she stood up for him, and while we don't see him leave, we know he does. Dr. Bill has taken his first steps into joining a cult. So, post-masked ball, are there other clues or instances of this initiation ritual? I believe so. However, everything that happens after the masked ball can be swapped in or out for Dr. Hartford's own paranoid perspective, which works in context of the cult planting the seed of fear in his mind. The next morning, Cruz takes a taxi to the Sonata Cafe, where he hopes to run into his old medical school buddy, Nightingale. However, the club is closed. I'm not sure what he was expecting, as most jazz clubs stay open late and open in the afternoon. Instead, he goes to the diner next door, looking for information on Nick. He orders a coffee at the counter and persuades the waitress to give him Nick's current hotel address. It's possible this was all arranged, as once Dr. Hartford arrives at the hotel, the man at the counter, played by a young Alan Cumming, gives him all the information he needs. Coincidence? Is it a stretch to assume that the waitress at the coffee shop and the desk clerk at the hotel are plants placed by the cult in order to continue the charade and initiation ritual? Maybe, but maybe not. Ziegler tells Dr. Bill that he had him followed. These are some of the most influential and powerful people in the city, we can assume, and paying Nick to be a plant to entice and lure him into the mansion, and paying a waitress to give a fake hotel address, with an actor playing the clerk giving Dr. Hartford a fake story, wouldn't be so hard. I mean, let's talk about the interaction between Alan Cumming and Cruz at the hotel desk, and how abnormal it actually is. When Cruz enters the lobby and asks the clerk to please ring Nick Nightingale's room, without missing a beat, the clerk responds that Mr. Nightingale has checked out. I'm of the opinion that most hotel lobby desk clerks wouldn't have each guest's name and face memorized. Now, it's possible he was able to answer so quickly due to the extenuating circumstances which occurred relating to Nick's extremely early and suspicious checkout. He soon informs Cruz that Nick came in at 5 a.m. with a black eye and two big, well-dressed men who handled his departure. But even still, if this weren't part of an act, how does he know immediately and without flinching exactly who and when Nick Nightingale checked out? Kubrick is famous for shooting dozens of takes, and this is the shot he used. I believe Alan Cumming is in on it. I mean, why not? He tells Cruz the entire story. He gives him multiple details, all with a singular throughline of, don't mess with these guys. They'll beat you up and steal you away in the middle of the night. That's at least the lesson Cruz is learning. In fact, how do we even know this was actually the hotel Nick was staying at? All we know is this is where the waitress sent him. Later that day, still obsessed with last night's incident, Cruz drives back to the mansion. He walks up to the gate, and an angry old-looking man hands him an envelope with his name, Dr. William Hartford, typed to the front of the envelope. Something that would have taken considerable more time to print up than the minute or two he stood at the gate. we can assume it took a minute just to drive from the house to the gate. So this does feel staged, or at least planned. In fact, the letter 2 is typed, reading, "Give up your inquiries, which are completely useless, and consider these words a second warning. We hope for your own good that this will be sufficient." Now, side note, there are many theories about this letter, which I'd love to dive deeper into in a future video. If you'd like more Eyes Wide Shut content from me or more Kubrick, let me know in the comments below. And feel free to let me know your favorite Kubrick film as well. But what's important about the note isn't what it says, but that it exists. To me, this says that not only is the cult aware of his continued inquiries, but that they expected it. This is all part of their plan, and he's walking the exact path that they had laid in front of him. Dr. William Hartford is almost theirs. One final piece of the puzzle, something that's always bothered me, and then I want to hear what you think. I mean, do you think I'm overreaching? Is this just one way to look at the film, or am I onto something? Is this entire movie an initiation ritual to get the doctor and his family to join the secret society? Let me know what you think in the comments below. But my favorite Easter egg in the whole movie is when Bill is back out on the street later that night, looking to somehow figure a way to get his wife's fantasy confession out of his mind. Her story about the naval officer. He decides he should go back and find the prostitute Domino that he didn't have sex with the previous night. And I think that's his plan for this evening. In fact, before he goes to her, he calls the daughter of the patient who had just died the night before, but her husband answers the phone. So that plan didn't work out and Cruise hangs up, not saying a word. Instead, he goes to find Domino at her apartment, but instead finds her roommate, who informs him that Domino had just found out she's HIV positive and may not be coming home. As Cruise heads home, or walks aimlessly through the streets trying to figure out what to do, he gets the feeling like he's being watched, and he stops at a newsstand to get away from the man who's following him, a man who does stop and stares directly at him. But while he's at the newsstand, he picks up a newspaper, and the entire headline says, "Lucky to be alive." Now, he takes that newspaper, finds a local late-night coffee spot, sits down, orders a cappuccino, and opens the paper to find a news article saying how an ex-beauty queen was found overdosed and dead in her apartment, with the name Amanda Curran. Mandy. This must be the Mandy that he first saved from overdosing at Ziegler's Christmas party, and then later saved his life the next day at the masked ball. And this is as much as Ziegler tells him later that night. Before he speaks to Ziegler, he goes to the hospital and finds Mandy at the morgue. And here is something that's always bothered me, and I'm going to provide you with some photos so that you can decide what you think. I don't think this is the body of Amanda Curran, or Mandy. This, to me, doesn't look like the girl we saw in Ziegler's bathroom at the Christmas party. It looks like Domino. And every time I see the film, I squint a little harder to try to figure out which it is. If it is Domino, then I think that's the final mic drop for my theory. Ziegler wouldn't give away his favorite girl, and I do think that Mandy is the same person who saved him at the party, which leads me to believe that maybe she didn't even overdose initially, and maybe that was all part of an act to see what the good doctor would do, as I had mentioned before. But they did need a body. They needed the doctor to think that she was killed for saving him, and I believe the body they used was Domino's. We know she's not coming home. We know her roommate is already giving out stories about how she may never come home. And if Cruise's Dr. Hartford recognizes her, well, that tells him everything he needs to know. These people know everything about him, and they are actually willing to kill if they want to. When he comes home that night, he finds his missing mask lying next to his wife in bed. He breaks down and cries, confessing everything to her. The next scene, the two seemingly give their daughter away while at FAO Schwartz, and the movie ends with Nicole Kidman's famous quote about what they need to do right now. So, what does this all mean, and was this all an elaborate plan to get the doctor and his family to give away their child and join the cult? Before I go, I've got one final question for you. Is Nicole Kidman's Alice in on it from the beginning? I have a sneaking suspicion she actually might be. Let me know what you think in the comments below, but I didn't initially have that suspicion when I began making this video, but the more I watched the movie for research, the more I started to question everything that she did. She puts the idea in his mind that he's not enough. She tells him about her dreams sleeping with hundreds of men. She has the mask next to her in bed. She doesn't seem to have an issue giving their daughter away, and she has the beginnings of their next plan to move on, which is to to, you know. Thanks for watching. Let me know what your theories are below in the comments, and if you love Stanley Kubrick films, check out this video I made about 2001: A Space Odyssey. This was Film School, Dad.